The war room fell silent as Commander Hyunwoo placed his six-fingered hand on the holographic display. The red markers showing Krell territory had spread like a disease across the map. 3 years ago, they covered only a small corner. Now, nearly half the galaxy burned under their control. Ji-won sat in the back corner of the room, watching the alien commanders argue. She was the human ambassador to the Galactic Coalition, but lately, she felt more like a witness to a slow death. The Verath, the Silaran, and the Morphid species had formed this coalition to stop the Krell swarm. They were losing badly. "We must hold the Keras system," said General Voth, a tall Silaran with silver skin that reflected the red hologram light. "If we lose it, the Krell will have a direct path to our home worlds. With what forces?" Hyunwoo's voice was tired. "We lost 2 fleets last month. Our shipyards cannot build fast enough to replace them." Ji-won had heard this same argument a dozen times. The coalition fought with honor. They followed ancient rules of war. They gave warnings before attacks. They avoided civilian targets. They treated prisoners well. The Krell did none of these things. The Krell swarm was like a plague of locusts. They bred fast, died without fear, and consumed everything in their path. Their warriors were born to fight and die. They didn't negotiate. They didn't retreat. They just kept coming, wave after wave, until nothing remained. Captain Do-hyun stood beside Ji-won. He was the military observer from Earth, sent to watch and report. He had been here for 6 months, and she could see the frustration in his eyes, growing with each passing day. "This is insane," Do-hyun whispered to her in Korean. "They're fighting with both hands tied behind their backs." Ji-won nodded slightly, but said nothing. The coalition had invited humans to observe, not to participate. Earth was new to the galactic community. They had no voice here yet. "The Krell attacked the medical station at Verath 7, another commander reported. "They killed everyone. Doctors, patients, everyone. Barbarians," Voth spat. "We should respond by targeting their supply lines. Cut them off from resources." "We tried that," Hyunwoo said. "They ate their own dead to survive. Our strategy books have no answer for an enemy like this." Do-hyun shifted beside Ji-won. She could feel his anger. She shared it. Humans had fought brutal wars. They knew what total war meant. But the coalition wouldn't ask for that kind of help. They still believed they could win with honor intact. "Ambassador Ji-won," Hyunwoo said suddenly. All eyes turned to her. "Your people have been observing for months. What does Earth think of our situation?" Ji-won stood and walked to the holographic display. She studied the red markers for a moment. "My government believes you are facing an extinction-level threat," she said carefully. "We are ready to help if you request it." "Earth has a small fleet," Voth said dismissively. "What difference could a few human ships make?" "It's not about the number of ships," Do-hyun said, stepping forward. "It's about how you use them." "Explain," Hyunwoo said. Do-hyun pointed to a recent battle report. "The Krell sent 50,000 warriors at your position here. You had 10,000 defenders. You fought honorably, gave ground slowly, evacuated civilians first. You lost the planet, but saved 90% of the civilians. The Krell lost maybe 5,000 warriors. In their eyes, they won decisively." "We saved lives," Voth protested. "You did," Do-hyun agreed. "But you're losing the war. The Krell breed faster than you can kill them. Every planet you give up gives them more resources to build more warriors. You're dying slowly instead of quickly, but you're still dying." The room erupted in angry voices. Ji-won watched Hyunwoo carefully. He didn't join the shouting. He stared at the map, with ancient eyes that had seen too much death. "What would humans do differently?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. The room fell silent again. Do-hyun looked at Ji-won. She gave him a small nod. "We would kill 45,000 of those 50,000 warriors," Do-hyun said. "We would poison their supply lines. We would turn their breeding grounds into graveyards. We would make them afraid to attack. That is not warfare, Voth said with disgust. That is butchery. That is survival, Do-hyun replied. On Earth, we have a saying. War is not about who is right. It's about who is left. Unacceptable. Another commander said. We have standards. Laws. The Galactic Conventions forbid such tactics. The Krell don't care about your conventions, Ji-won said. They will exterminate you, and your standards will die with you. Hyunwoo raised a hand for silence. How long do we have? He asked his staff. An analyst stepped forward. At current rates of loss, 6 months. Maybe 8, if we abandon the outer colonies immediately. 6 months. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Ji-won saw the weight of it settle on every commander's shoulders. They had known it was bad, but hearing it stated so clearly made it real. We should discuss surrender terms. One commander suggested quietly. Perhaps the Krell will allow our species to survive as subjects. They won't, Do-hyun said flatly. They don't take subjects. They take territory and resources. Your people would be resources. Ji-won pulled out her communication device. She typed a message in English. Request immediate military intervention. Full authorization for independent action. She encrypted it and sent it to Earth. What was that? Voth demanded. A message home, Ji-won said calmly. Updating my government on the situation. Hyunwoo watched her with intelligent eyes. He was old for a Varath. Nearly 300 years. He had fought in a dozen wars and won most of them, but he had never faced an enemy like the Krell. You think Earth can help us? He asked. I think Earth can show you a different way to fight, Ji-won said. Whether you accept that help is your choice. And what would this help cost us? Voth asked, suspiciously. Nothing, Ji-won replied. Humans believe in helping allies in need. But I will be honest with you. If our soldiers come here, they will fight the way humans fight. It will not be pretty. It will not be honorable by your standards. But you will survive. The meeting continued for another hour, but nothing was decided. The coalition would keep fighting their way. They would keep losing. Will Earth send help? Do-hyun asked, as they walked down the corridor. Yes, Ji-won said. The message I sent was pre-authorized. I've been waiting for the right moment. And you think this is it? 6 months until extinction? Yes, this is it. Do-hyun stopped and looked back at the war room. They're going to hate us for what we do here. Maybe, Ji-won agreed. But they'll be alive to hate us. That's what matters. 3 days later, Hyunwoo came to Ji-won's quarters. He looked older, more tired. The council debated for 60 hours, he said. We cannot agree on whether to ask for human military assistance. We are paralyzed by our own principles. Then, you will die by them, Ji-won said simply. Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. Why do humans want to help us? We barely know each other. Because we've been where you are, Ji-won said. Facing extinction. Having to choose between our values and our survival. We chose survival. And we lived with the consequences. Maybe we can spare you some of that burden. Or maybe you'll make it worse, Hyunwoo said. Maybe, Ji-won admitted. But worse than extinction? That's not possible. Hyunwoo looked at her with something like hope in his eyes. Your message 3 days ago. What did it say? Ji-won smiled slightly. It said, send the soldiers, the ruthless ones. Hyunwoo's eyes widened. They're already coming? They'll be here in 2 weeks, Ji-won confirmed. The council doesn't need to ask. Earth is asking for permission to help. You just need to say yes. Hyunwoo left without another word. Ji-won didn't know if that was a good sign or bad. But the wheels were already in motion. The humans were coming. The war was about to change in ways the galaxy had never seen. The 3 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Vareth Prime. They were smaller than Coalition battleships but built differently. Where Coalition ships were smooth and elegant, human ships looked aggressive. They had sharp angles and heavy armor. They looked like they were designed to hurt things. Private Tajin stood in the transport bay with 500 other soldiers, waiting to land. He was young, only 23, and this was his first deployment off Earth. He had trained for 2 years in the harshest conditions Earth could offer. He was ready. At least, he hoped he was. "First time in space, kid?" Sergeant Unji asked. She was checking her equipment, her movements quick and efficient. "Yes, Sergeant," Tajin replied. "You'll do fine. Just remember your training, and don't think too much." Lieutenant Yuna walked past, her boots clicking on the metal floor. She was young for an officer, but had a reputation. She had served in the Pacific Conflict and the Arctic Wars. She knew psychological warfare better than anyone in the fleet. Tajin had heard stories about her. Some of them scared him. 10 minutes to landing, the pilot announced. "Welcome to Vareth Prime. Try not to start any wars down there." The soldiers laughed. They were all volunteers. They knew what they were signing up for. Earth's government had been clear. This would not be a normal peacekeeping mission. This would be total war against an enemy that showed no mercy. Only soldiers who could handle that reality were sent. The transport landed on a military base outside the coalition capital. As the ramp lowered, Tajin saw hundreds of alien soldiers watching them. Varath troops. Tall and gray-skinned with 6 fingers. Seelerin troops with their silver skin and 3 eyes. Even some Morphid, small but quick, with 4 arms each. They all stared at the humans like they were seeing something dangerous. Colonel Minho walked down the ramp first. He was a veteran of 30 years, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands. He had fought in every major Earth conflict for the past 2 decades. He stopped at the bottom of the ramp and saluted Commander Hyunwoo. "Colonel Minho reporting," he said. 5,000 soldiers, ready for deployment." Hyunwoo returned the salute. "Only 5,000?" he asked. "The Krell. Field armies of millions. Quality over quantity," Minho replied. "We brought specialists. Each one worth 100 regular soldiers." Jiwon stood beside Hyunwoo, translating where needed. Captain Do-hyun was there too, looking pleased to see his fellow humans. "We've prepared quarters for your troops," Hyunwoo said. "The council has agreed to let you observe our operations." "See, observe?" Minho said. "Ambassador Jiwon's message said you needed fighters, not tourists. The council is still debating how much freedom to give your forces," Hyunwoo admitted. "Many members are concerned about your methods." Minho's expression didn't change, but Tajin could see the disappointment. They hadn't come here to watch. They came here to fight. That evening, the coalition held a war council. Minho brought Lieutenant Yuna and 3 other officers. Tajin and other enlisted soldiers waited outside, but they could hear the raised voices through the walls. "This is madness," someone shouted inside. It sounded like General Voth. "You want to use chemical weapons? Biological agents? Target civilian infrastructure?" "The Krell don't have civilians," Minho's calm voice replied. "Every Krell is a warrior or future warrior. Their entire society is a military machine. That doesn't justify war crimes." "War crimes?" Minho's voice turned cold. "Let me show you war crimes." There was silence for a moment. Then someone gasped. Tajin later learned that Minho had shown them recordings from planets the Krell had conquered. Bodies stacked like firewood, entire species reduced to feeding stock. Children used as hosts for Krell larvae. "This is what you're facing," Minho said quietly. "This is what they'll do to your people if you lose. And you are losing. So you can keep your honor and die, or you can fight to win and live with the consequences. Your choice." More arguing followed. Tajin couldn't hear all the words, but the tone was clear. The coalition commanders were divided. Some wanted to use human tactics. Others were horrified by the suggestion. Finally, Hyunwoo's voice cut through the noise. "Enough. I propose a compromise. We give the humans 1 sector to defend. They fight their way. We continue our way in other sectors. We see which method works better. You're gambling with lives, Voth protested. I'm trying to save lives. Hyunwoo replied. If the human way fails, we've lost one sector. If it succeeds, we have a new strategy. Either way, we learn something. The council voted. It was close, but Hyunwoo's compromise won. The humans would get Sector 7, a region that was already under heavy Krell pressure. If they could hold it, the coalition would consider expanding human tactics. If they failed, the humans would be sent home. Minho came out of the war room looking satisfied. We got our sector, he told his officers. Now we show them how Earth fights. The next morning, the human forces moved to Sector 7. It was a collection of 6 planets and 20 space stations. Intelligence said the Krell were planning a major offensive there within days. The coalition had been preparing to evacuate. Taejin's unit landed on the main planet, Karis IV. It was a mining world, mostly automated. The human population was already gone, evacuated weeks ago. Only coalition military remained, and they were packing up to leave. Stop, Lieutenant Yuna ordered the coalition troops. This planet is not being evacuated. A Verith captain looked confused. The Krell are coming with 200,000 warriors. We have maybe 5,000 troops here. We cannot hold. You can't. Yuna agreed. We can. Stay or leave. Your choice. But we're not giving up this planet without a fight. Most of the coalition troops chose to leave. A few hundred stayed, curious to see what the humans would do. They would regret that curiosity, Taejin thought, not because of danger, but because of what they were about to witness. Sergeant Unji gathered the engineers. We have 72 hours before the Krell arrive, she said. We're going to turn this entire planet into a trap. Every building, every mine shaft, every road. I want it all ready to kill. For 3 days, Taejin barely slept. He helped plant mines in civilian buildings. He helped rig fuel depots to explode. He helped spray invisible chemicals on roads that would react with Krell biology. Every step felt wrong. This wasn't the honorable warfare he had been taught about in school, but he remembered the videos Minho had shown them during training. The Krell didn't take prisoners. They didn't show mercy. If you fought them with honor, you died with honor. That was all. Dr. Sunho arrived with containers of biological agents. He was a military scientist, quiet and focused. He explained to the officers how his compounds would disrupt Krell pheromone communication. Without pheromones, the Krell would become confused, unable to coordinate. Is it painful? One of the coalition observers asked. Very, Sunho replied without emotion. But it's effective. The observer looked sick. This is not warfare. This is butchery. Welcome to human warfare, Yuna said. We butcher the enemy so our people can live. If that bothers you, leave, now. The observer stayed. So did the others. They needed to see this. They needed to understand what was coming. On the 3rd day, the Krell arrived. Their ships filled the sky, hundreds of them, dropping warriors like rain. The Krell didn't use tactics. They didn't need to. They just sent wave after wave of warriors, overwhelming defenders by sheer numbers. But this time, they found something different waiting for them. The first wave of Krell warriors landed in the capital city. 50,000 of them, screeching and charging forward. They found the city empty. No defenders, no resistance, just empty buildings. Wait for it, Minho said calmly from the command center. He watched the monitors as the Krell flooded into the city center. Sergeant Yunji had her finger on the trigger. All Krell units in the kill zone, she reported. Fire, Mingyu ordered. Taejin watched the screens as the entire city exploded. Every building, every street, all at once. The explosion was visible from space. When the dust cleared, 50,000 Krell warriors were dead. Human casualties, 0. The coalition observers stood in shocked silence. One of them vomited. Another just stared, with wide eyes. That was a war crime, General Voth said over the communication channel. His voice shook. That was war, Minho replied. Get used to it. The Krell sent another wave. And another. Each time, they died in carefully prepared traps. Minefields that looked like empty ground. Chemical sprays that made them attack each other. False retreat followed by encirclement and annihilation. By the end of the first day, the Krell had lost 80,000 warriors. The humans had lost 150 soldiers. The math was brutal and clear. Hyunwoo arrived at the command center that night. He looked at the casualty reports for a long time. You saved the planet, he finally said. We killed the enemy, Minho corrected. Is there? Hyunwoo asked quietly. Minho turned to face him. Commander, you asked why humans fight this way. I'll tell you. We fight to win because we've lost before. We've faced extinction. We've had to make terrible choices. We do these dark things so others don't have to. That's the burden we carry. Hyunwoo looked at the young soldiers around the command center. Kids like Taejin, who would have nightmares about this for the rest of their lives. Is the burden worth it? He asked. Ask me that question in 6 months, Minho said. If your species is still alive, you'll have your answer. The Krell didn't understand fear, but they understood losses. After 3 days of dying by the thousands in Sector 7, they changed their strategy. Instead of small waves, they gathered their forces for one massive attack. Intelligence reported 200,000 Krell warriors moving toward Karis IV. Colonel Minho studied the reports in his command center. Lieutenant Yuna stood beside him, along with Dr. Sunho and Sergeant Unji. Outside, Taejin and the other soldiers prepared defensive positions. But everyone knew defensive positions wouldn't stop 200,000 enemies. They're coming all at once, Yuna observed. They learned from the traps. Good, Minho said. That means we're teaching them to think. Thinking enemies make mistakes. Sir, we have 5,000 soldiers, Unji pointed out. They have 200,000. Even with our tactics, those numbers are extreme. Then we don't fight them with soldiers, Minho replied. We fight them with their own instincts. Dr. Sunho smiled slightly. It was not a kind smile. The pheromone disruptors are ready, he said. We can deploy them across the entire landing zone. Coalition observers watched from a safe distance. Commander Hyunwoo had arrived personally, bringing General Voth and other senior commanders. They needed to see this. The Coalition Council was still divided on whether to adopt human tactics. This battle would decide everything. Incoming, a sensor operator announced. Krell dropships entering atmosphere. Count is 400 ships. The sky darkened with Krell vessels. They were organic ships, grown rather than built, covered in chitin armor. They descended like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the sun. Taejin watched from his position and felt his stomach tighten with fear. Steady, Sergeant Unji said over the radio. Remember your training. Let them come to us. The Krell ships landed in a massive field outside the city. The cargo doors opened and warriors poured out. They were insectoid creatures, 2 meters tall, with 4 arms ending in sharp claws. Their bodies were armored naturally, and they moved with frightening speed. 200,000 of them, all screeching their war cries. Dr. Sunho, deploy the disruptors, Minho ordered. Sunho pressed a button. Hidden dispensers around the landing field released a colorless gas. It was invisible, odorless to humans. But to the Krell, it was devastating. Their entire communication system relied on pheromones. Without them, they couldn't coordinate, couldn't identify leaders, couldn't tell friend from threat. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Krell kept advancing. Then, slowly, they began to slow down. Warriors bumped into each other. Some started attacking nearby warriors. Confusion spread through the ranks like a disease. Phase 1 successful, Sunho reported. The disruptor is working better than expected. Lieutenant Yuna, you're up, Minho said. Yuna activated her equipment. Speakers hidden around the battlefield began broadcasting sounds. Krell distress calls. Queen Mind commands that contradicted each other. False alarm pheromones that had been synthesized in labs. It was psychological warfare at its finest. The Krell army descended into chaos. Warriors ran in different directions. Some attacked each other, thinking they were facing enemies. Others tried to retreat, but crashed into warriors still advancing. It was madness. Now, Minho ordered. Artillery, open fire. Human artillery, positioned on the hills, began firing. Not at the Krell directly. Instead, they fired canisters that released more chemicals. Some were incendiary compounds that ignited when they touched Krell chitin. Others were acid that ate through their armor. Still, others were simple, fear pheromones that made the Krell panic. The battlefield became hell. Krell warriors burned, melted, or tore each other apart in confusion. The few that maintained some coherence tried to charge the human positions. But they ran into minefields. Explosions ripped through their ranks. Taejin fired his rifle at approaching Krell. His bullets were specially designed, explosive tips that shattered chitin armor. Each shot killed or crippled, but he barely needed to fire. The Krell were destroying themselves. Commander Hyunwoo watched in silence. Beside him, General Voth looked pale. Other coalition observers simply stared, unable to process what they were seeing. This is not battle, Voth whispered. This is extermination. This is survival, Jiwon replied. She stood with the coalition commanders, watching her people work. You're seeing what humans do when extinction is the alternative. But the cruelty, a Morphid commander said. The suffering. Would you prefer they suffer less while they kill all of you? Jiwon asked sharply. Because that's the choice. Die with honor, or live with guilt. Choose. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 160,000 Krell warriors were dead. Another 30,000 were injured and scattered. The remaining 10,000 had somehow managed to retreat back to their ships. Human casualties numbered 142, killed, and 300 wounded. The math was devastating. Sergeant Unji walked through the battlefield afterward with her engineering team. They were placing sensors to study Krell biology, taking samples, learning. Every battle was a lesson. Every dead enemy was data. Taejin helped with the cleanup. It was grim work. The Krell dead were everywhere. Their bodies twisted and burned. Some were still alive, twitching and screeching. Mercy shots ended their suffering. It was the humane thing to do, even if the battle itself had been anything but humane. That night, Commander Hyunwoo confronted Colonel Minho in the command center. His face was a mask of controlled anger. What you did today, he said quietly. It was monstrous. It was effective, Minho replied without apology. You made them kill each other. You burned them alive. You turned them into terrified animals. Yes, how can you be so calm about this? Hyunwoo demanded. Don't you feel anything? Minho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired. I feel everything, Commander. Every death weighs on me. Every scream stays with me. But I learned a long time ago that feeling guilty doesn't help anyone. The only thing that matters is keeping my people alive. Your people too. Now. There must be another way, Hyunwoo insisted. Then find it, Minho said. I'm serious. If you can find a way to stop the Krell without these tactics, I'll happily use it. But until then, we do what works. Hyunwoo left without another word. But Jiwon saw something in his eyes. Not acceptance. Not yet. But understanding. He was beginning to see why humans fought this way. The news of the battle spread quickly through the coalition. The results were impossible to ignore. 160,000 Krell, dead for 142 human soldiers. It was the most one-sided victory in the entire war. But the cost to coalition values was high. Protests erupted on Vareth Prime. Thousands of civilians marched against the human presence. They called the humans war criminals, monsters, barbarians. They demanded the humans be sent home, even if it meant losing the war. Politicians divided into camps. Some supported the human tactics as necessary for survival. Others claimed it was better to die with honor than live with shame. The Coalition Council met in emergency session after emergency session, unable to reach consensus. Private Taejin sat in the barracks, cleaning his rifle. Around him, other soldiers did the same. They didn't talk much. What was there to say? They had won the battle, saved the planet, and now they were hated for it. "You okay, kid?" Sergeant Unji asked. "I don't know," Taejin admitted. "We did the right thing, didn't we?" "We did the necessary thing," Unji corrected. Right and wrong get complicated in war. Necessary is all we can aim for. Lieutenant Yuna walked through the barracks, checking on her troops. She stopped at Taejin's bunk. "First major battle is always the hardest," she said. "You did well." "Thank you, ma'am," Taejin replied. "But I keep thinking about those Krell. How confused they were. How scared." "Good," Yuna said. "The day you stop thinking about it is the day you become a monster. We do terrible things, but we stay human by remembering that they're terrible. Never forget that." Days passed. More battles followed. The Krell kept attacking Sector 7, and the humans kept winning. Each victory was more lopsided than the last. The Krell were learning, adapting their tactics, but humans adapted faster. Dr. Sunho developed new chemical weapons almost daily. Each one targeted different aspects of Krell biology. Some made their chitin armor brittle. Others interfered with their nervous systems. Still others made them unable to digest food. It was systematic and efficient. Coalition observers came and went. Some watched for a few hours and left disgusted. Others stayed, taking notes, asking questions. Hyunwoo came every day, watching everything with ancient eyes that missed nothing. "You're learning," Minho observed one day. "Learning what?" Hyunwoo asked. "How to fight total war." "I see it in your eyes. You're starting to understand." Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. "I hate that you're right," he finally said. "I hate that this works. I hate that we might need to become like you to survive." "You won't become like us," Minho said. "You'll become something new. A combination of coalition honor and human ruthlessness. Maybe that's better than either one alone. Or maybe it's worse than both," Hyunwoo replied. "Maybe," Minho agreed. "But you'll be alive to figure it out. That's what matters." The Krell High Command finally recognized humans as a serious threat. Intelligence reported that they were pulling forces from other fronts to deal with Sector 7. Good, Minho thought. Every Krell focused on humans was a Krell not attacking the coalition elsewhere. But there was a problem. The Krell were preparing something big, something that would change the war entirely. Captain Jisoo, the intelligence officer, brought the news to Minho late one night. "Sir, we have a problem," she said. "A big one." Minho looked up from his reports. Jisoo's face was pale. "Show me," he said. She displayed reconnaissance images. They showed a massive Krell structure being built in deep space. It was enormous, planet-sized. Energy readings suggested it was a weapon that could sterilize entire worlds from orbit. "When will it be operational?" Minho asked. 3 months. Maybe less. Minho stared at the images for a long time. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Then we have 3 months to stop it," he said. "Looks like we're going on the offensive." Captain Jisoo studied the mission briefing one more time. She had 24 hours before her team would insert into Krell territory. It was a suicide mission, in all but name. Her job was to locate the Queen Mind, the central intelligence that controlled all Krell forces, and gather information about their superweapon. "You don't have to volunteer," Colonel Minho had told her. "I can find someone else." "With respect, sir, no you can't," Jisoo had replied. "I've studied Krell biology for 2 years. I know their pheromone systems better than anyone. I'm the best chance this mission has." She was right, and they both knew it. Now, sitting in the briefing room with her team of 12 specialists, Jisoo went through the plan one more time. They would use captured Krell pheromone signatures to disguise themselves. They would travel in a stolen Krell ship. They would infiltrate the hive structure where intelligence suggested the Queen Mind resided. "Questions?" Jisoo asked when she finished. Private Taejin raised his hand. He had been selected for the team because of his small size. He could fit into spaces larger soldiers couldn't. "Ma'am, what's the extraction plan?" Jisoo met his eyes. "There isn't one," she said honestly. "If we succeed, we'll transmit the data and then try to fight our way out. If we fail, at least the data will get through. Either way, Earth will know what we're facing." The room was quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. This was a one-way trip. While Jisoo prepared for her mission, the political situation on Vareth Prime deteriorated. Elder Kyungmin, a respected Vareth politician, had become the voice of opposition to human tactics. He led protests, gave speeches, and demanded the Coalition Council expel the human forces. "We are becoming monsters to fight monsters," Kyungmin declared, to a crowd of 100,000. "Our ancestors built the coalition on principles of honor and dignity. Are we to abandon thousands of years of civilization because we face a difficult enemy?" The crowd roared approval. But Ambassador Jiwon noticed that many in the crowd looked uncertain. They agreed with Kyungmin's words. But they also knew the humans were winning while the coalition had been losing. Jiwon had been summoned to appear before an ethics tribunal. Coalition law required investigating any potential war crimes. The tribunal consisted of 7 judges from different species. They sat in a semicircle, looking down at Jiwon with expressions ranging from disgust to curiosity. "Ambassador, the evidence is clear," the head judge said. "Human forces under your authority have used chemical weapons, biological agents, and targeted psychological warfare. These actions violate the galactic conventions of warfare. How do you respond?" Jiwon stood calmly. She had prepared for this. "I respond by saying your conventions were written for wars between civilized species. The Krell are not party to those conventions. They don't follow any rules. Asking humans to fight with one hand tied behind our backs is asking us to lose. The rules exist to prevent barbarism," another judge said. "If we abandon them, we become barbarians ourselves. Tell that to the species the Krell have exterminated," Jiwon replied. "Oh wait, you can't. They're all dead. Dead. But honorable. Is that what you want?" "Your words are inflammatory and unhelpful," the head judge said. "My words are true," Jiwon countered. "You brought humans here because you were losing. We're winning. If you don't like our methods, fine. Send us home. But don't ask us to fight and then complain when we fight effectively." The tribunal debated for hours. Jiwon sat and waited patiently. Finally, they announced their decision. The human tactics were technically violations of the conventions, but given the existential threat, the tribunal would issue only a formal censure. Humans could continue operating, but the coalition reserved the right to restrict their actions if needed. It was a political compromise that satisfied no one, but it kept the humans in the fight. Private Taejin adjusted the pheromone emitter attached to his suit. It made him smell like a Krell worker, at least to other Krell. To humans, it smelled like rotting fruit mixed with ammonia. He tried not to gag. The infiltration team boarded the stolen Krell ship. It was organic inside, walls made of hardened resin, floors that squelched underfoot. Everything was designed for creatures with 4 arms and chitin armor, not humans in bulky suits. "Radio silence from here on," Captain Jisoo ordered. "We use hand signals only. The Krell might not understand our language, but they can detect radio transmissions." The ship entered Krell space. They passed 3 patrol groups without incident. The pheromone disguises worked perfectly. To the Krell sensors, they were just another worker ship carrying supplies. It took 6 days to reach the hive structure. It was massive, built into an asteroid field, connected by organic tunnels that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Millions of Krell lived and worked here, and somewhere in the center was the Queen Mind. The team landed and disembarked. Immediately, they were surrounded by Krell workers. The workers ignored them, busy with their tasks. Taejin realized that was the beauty of the disguise. In a society of millions, who would notice a dozen more workers? They moved through the hive, following the intelligence they had. The Queen Mind would be in the deepest, most protected section. It would be heavily guarded. Getting close would be nearly impossible, but Captain Jisoo had a plan. She had brought samples of a pheromone that signaled urgent message for Queen Mind. It was a chemical command that no Krell could ignore. When she released it, workers automatically created a path for them. They descended deeper into the hive. The walls became thicker, more reinforced. Warrior Krell appeared, standing guard at intersections. But the pheromone disguises held. The warriors let them pass. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. In the center was the Queen Mind. It was enormous, 10 times the size of a normal Krell. Its body bloated and immobile. Thousands of tubes and tendrils connected it to the hive structure. This was the brain of the entire Krell operation. Jisoo set up scanning equipment while the team kept watch. The data they gathered was horrifying. The superweapon was worse than they thought. It wasn't just a planet killer. It was a tool for rapid conquest. It would sterilize worlds, making them immediately habitable for Krell colonization. And it was 90% complete. Not 3 months away. 3 weeks. "We need to leave now," Jisoo whispered urgently. "Transmit the data." But before they could move, alarms sounded. The pheromone disguises had stopped working. Maybe they wore off. Maybe the Queen Mind detected something wrong. Either way, they were discovered. Warriors poured into the chamber, hundreds of them. The team opened fire. Their weapons specially designed to kill Krell. But there were too many. "Go!" Jisoo shouted at Taejin. "Take the data and run. I'm not leaving you." Taejin protested. "That's an order, Private." Jisoo thrust the data chip into his hands. "This information is more important than any of us. Run." Taejin ran. Behind him, he heard weapons fire and screaming. His team was dying to buy him time. He couldn't think about that now. He had to survive. Had to get the data out. He navigated the hive by memory, his heart pounding. Warriors chased him, but he was small and fast. He dodged through passages they couldn't fit through. He used grenades to collapse tunnels behind him. Finally, he reached the hangar where they had left the ship. It was swarming with Krell. No way to reach it. But there was an escape pod. A small organic capsule used for emergency evacuations. He climbed inside and launched it. The pod shot out of the hive into open space. Krell ships pursued. But the pod was small and hard to target. Taejin activated the emergency beacon and prayed someone would pick him up before the Krell caught him. 3 hours later, a human patrol ship found him. He was barely conscious, dehydrated and exhausted. But he still clutched the data chip. Back on Verith Prime, the news spread quickly. The infiltration team was dead. Only Taejin survived. The data he brought back confirmed everyone's worst fears. The Krell superweapon would be operational in 3 weeks. Elder Kyungmin held an emergency session of the Coalition Council. "This changes everything," he said heavily. "If the Krell deploy this weapon, we face extinction within months. Then we must act," Commander Hyunwoo said. "We cannot wait for them to attack. We must strike first." "Strike how?" Voth demanded. "The weapon is in the heart of Krell space. We would need to send our entire fleet." "It would be a suicide mission." Colonel Minho stood up. "Not a suicide mission," he said. "A necessary mission. And yes, it will cost lives. Many lives. But if we succeed, we end this war." "How?" Kyungmin asked. "We destroy the Queen Mind," Minho said. "Captain Jisu's data shows where it is. The Queen Mind controls all Krell forces. Without it, they'll collapse into chaos. They won't be able to coordinate, won't be able to deploy their weapon. One target," Hyunwoo said slowly. "We put everything into one attack." "Exactly," Minho agreed. "One massive strike. Human and coalition forces together. We might lose half our fleet. But if we win, the war is over." The council debated through the night. Finally, as dawn broke, they reached a decision. They would launch the attack, but not just with military forces. This would be a true, combined operation. Human ruthlessness and coalition resources. The best of both. Kyungmin approached Jiwon after the vote. "I have opposed your people from the beginning," he said quietly. "I still believe your methods are wrong, but I cannot deny they work. And I cannot let my people die because of my principles." "War forces hard choices," Jiwon replied. "Yes," Kyungmin agreed. "I'm beginning to understand that. Your people have paid a terrible price for survival. Now, we must pay it too." Preparations began immediately. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon system. They had 3 weeks to prepare for the most important battle of the war. 3 weeks to train coalition forces in human tactics. 3 weeks to build the bombs and biological weapons they would need. Private Taejin volunteered for the mission. "Captain Jisoo died to get this information," he said when questioned. "I owe it to her to see it through." He was accepted. So were thousands of others, human and alien alike. They trained together, learning to fight as one force. Coalition soldiers learned to be ruthless. Human soldiers learned to work with alien equipment and tactics. It was a new kind of army. One that combined honor with brutality, idealism with pragmatism. It was what the galaxy needed to survive. As the fleet prepared to launch, Hyunwoo stood with Minho, watching the ships gather. "Will this work?" he asked. "I don't know," Minho admitted. "But it's our best chance. If we fail, the Krell win everything. Then we don't fail," Minho said simply. "We can't afford to." The combined fleet assembled in deep space, far from any inhabited system. It was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. 500 ships from the Coalition. 50 human warships. 200,000 soldiers from a dozen species. All preparing for one mission. Private Taejin stood in the hangar bay of his transport ship, surrounded by soldiers. Humans, Verath, Silaran, even some Morphid. 3 weeks ago, they had been strangers. Now, they were a unit. They had trained together, eaten together, learned each other's ways. "Ready, kid?" Sergeant Unji asked. She was checking her equipment one last time. "As ready as I'll ever be," Taejin replied. He touched the data chip hanging around his neck. Captain Jisu's data chip. He wore it to remember why they were doing this. On the bridge of the flagship, Colonel Minho and Commander Hyunwoo stood side by side. They had become unlikely friends over the past weeks. Minho had taught Hyunwoo about human tactics. Hyunwoo had taught Minho about coalition technology and strategy. Together, they had created something new. "The faint force is ready," Hyunwoo reported. Lieutenant Yuna had volunteered to lead a diversionary attack. She would take 100 ships and hit Krell positions on the opposite side of their territory. It would draw away defenders, giving the main force a chance. She knows it's a suicide mission, Minho said quietly. She volunteered anyway, Hyunwoo replied. Many did. Your Lieutenant Yuna is remarkable. She could have stayed safe, but chose to give others a chance at survival. Minho nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Yuna had been his student once, back on Earth. Now she was sacrificing herself so others could live. It was the human way. The hard way. All ships report ready, an officer announced. Then we go, Minho said. Signal the fleet. Operation Final Strike is active. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. They would arrive deep in Krell space in 6 hours. 6 hours to think about what was coming. 6 hours to prepare to die. Lieutenant Yuna's faint force arrived first. They hit a major Krell shipyard with everything they had. Yuna stood on her bridge, calm and focused, as explosions lit up the view screens. All ships, concentrated fire on the command structure, she ordered. Make them think we're here to stay. The Krell responded exactly as predicted. They pulled forces from across their territory to defend the shipyard. It was an important facility, and they couldn't let it fall. Ships poured in, hundreds of them, all converging on Yuna's position. Ma'am, we're heavily outnumbered, her second officer reported. Should we retreat? Negative, Yuna said. We hold as long as possible. Every minute we keep them here is a minute the main force has clear passage. Her ships fought brilliantly. They used every trick humans had developed. Psychological warfare, false retreats, concentrated fire on weak points. But numbers told eventually. One by one, her ships fell. On her bridge, alarms screamed. The hull was breaching. Life support failing. Yuna sent one final message to the main fleet. Target clear. Good hunting. Then, she rammed her damaged ship into a Krell battlecruiser at full speed. The main fleet detected Yuna's final transmission as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Ahead of them was the hive structure. The place where the Queen Mind lived. The heart of the Krell Empire. She bought us time, Minho said softly. Don't waste it. All ships, attack formation. Hit them hard and fast. The fleet surged forward. Krell defenders were fewer than expected, thanks to Yuna's sacrifice. But there were still thousands of warriors defending the hive. The battle began immediately. Taejin's transport launched with hundreds of others. Their mission was to land on the hive structure and fight their way to the Queen Mine chamber. Meanwhile, the fleet would engage Krell ships and provide cover. The transport shook as Krell fire hit the shields. Beside Taejin, a Verath soldier named Kael gripped his weapon tightly. They had become friends during training. Kael had been horrified by human tactics at first, but he had come to understand them. Scared? Kael asked. Terrified, Taejin admitted. You? Same, but we do this anyway. The transport crashed through the hive's outer shell and landed inside. The ramp dropped, and they charged out into hell. Krell warriors filled the corridors, thousands of them. The battle was chaos. Sergeant Unji led her team forward, placing demolition charges as they went. They were creating a path for the main force, blowing through walls and barriers. Her engineering expertise had never been more important. Dr. Sunho deployed biological weapons as they advanced. The chemicals filled the air, disrupting Krell coordination. But the Queen Mind adapted quickly, sending new pheromone signals to counteract the disruption. It was a battle of science and biology. Meanwhile, in space, the fleet fought desperately. Commander Hyunwoo commanded the coalition ships with skill, using traditional tactics, but modified with human aggression. They focused fire on Krell weak points, used false retreats to lure enemies into traps. We're losing ships, an officer reported. Casualty rate is 40% and rising. Keep pushing, Hyunwoo ordered. The ground teams need time. Inside the hive, Taejin's unit reached a major intersection. Krell warriors blocked every passage. They were trapped, taking fire from 3 directions. Soldiers fell around him. He fired back, his rifle overheating from constant use. "We need to break through," Kale shouted over the noise. Taejin looked at the corridor ahead. It was suicide to charge into that fire, but staying here was death too. He made a decision. "Cover me," he said. Before anyone could stop him, Taejin grabbed grenades and ran forward. He threw them into the Krell positions, not caring about his own safety. Explosions ripped through the warriors. He kept running, firing his rifle, screaming. Other soldiers followed. Kale charged beside him. They broke through the Krell line by sheer momentum and violence. Half the unit died in that charge, but they cleared the way. Deeper they went. The hive structure became organic. Walls of living tissue that bled when damaged. They were close now. Taejin could feel it. The Queen Mind was near. Colonel Minho had left the flagship and joined the ground assault. He fought alongside his soldiers, leading from the front. It was against regulations, but he didn't care. His people were dying. He would die with them if necessary. They reached the Queen Mind chamber. It was the same room Captain Jisoo had found. The Queen Mind sat in the center, massive and ancient, connected to everything by organic cables. "Plant the charges," Minho ordered. "We have 5 minutes before this place is crawling with warriors." Sergeant Yoonji and her team worked frantically. They placed nuclear charges at key structural points. Dr. Sunho deployed his final weapon, a biological agent designed to kill the Queen Mind specifically. But as they worked, the Queen Mind did something unexpected. It spoke, not in words, but in pheromones, that the translation equipment could barely interpret. "Why?" it asked. The concept was simple, but profound. Minho approached the Queen Mind. "Because you were going to kill everyone," he said. "We're protecting our people. We protect ours." "Then this war has no winners," Minho said. "Only survivors." The Queen Mind was silent for a moment. Then, "You are ruthless, efficient, like us. Perhaps you survive. We do not." Alarms sounded. Warriors were coming. Thousands of them. The charges were planted, but not armed yet. Unji worked as fast as she could, but she needed more time. "Everyone out," Minho ordered. "I'll arm the charges." "Sir, you won't have time to escape," Taejin protested. "I know," Minho said calmly. "Now go. That's an order." The soldiers retreated. Kale dragged Taejin away as he tried to stay. They fought their way back through the corridors, the entire hive shaking as explosions began. Minho stood alone in the Queen Mind chamber. He armed the nuclear charges, then injected the biological agent directly into the Queen Mind. It screamed, a sound that echoed through every Krell in the hive. Warriors burst into the chamber. Minho raised his rifle. He wouldn't survive, but he would buy the others time. He fired until his ammunition ran out, then drew his knife. Human to the end. The nuclear charges detonated. The Queen Mind chamber, and everything for kilometers around, vaporized in nuclear fire. The Queen Mind died instantly, and with it, the coordinated intelligence of the entire Krell swarm. In space, Commander Hyunwoo watched as the hive structure exploded. "Colonel Minho is gone," someone reported quietly. Hyunwoo closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them. "All ships. The Queen Mind is destroyed. The Krell are in disarray. Press the attack." He was right. Throughout the Krell fleet, chaos erupted. Without the Queen Mind, warriors lost coordination. Ships crashed into each other. Some simply stopped moving. The swarm was broken. The coalition fleet swept through them like a storm. In 6 hours, the battle was over. The Krell swarm, the terror that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization, was defeated. 2 weeks later, A memorial service was held on Vareth Prime. Flags from every coalition species flew alongside the Earth flag. Thousands attended to honor the dead. Lieutenant Yuna's sacrifice, Colonel Minho's final stand. The 50,000 soldiers who had died in the final battle. Elder Kyungmin gave the opening speech. "We were divided," he said. "Some wanted to fight with honor. Others argued for ruthless efficiency. In the end, we needed both. The humans taught us that survival sometimes requires dark choices. We taught them that sacrifice has meaning beyond mere strategy." Ambassador Jiwon spoke next. "Humanity came to help because we've been where you were. Facing extinction. Making terrible choices. We carry the burden of what we've done so that others might live in peace." Colonel Minho understood that. So did Lieutenant Yuna. So did the 50,000 who died beside them. Private Taejin stood with the other survivors. Beside him was KL, recovering from his wounds. Around them were humans. Verath, Siliren, Morphid. They were all soldiers now. All survivors. "Do you think it was worth it?" Kale asked quietly. Taejin touched the data chip around his neck. "Captain Jisu's final gift. Ask me in 50 years," he said. "When our children are alive because of what we did here. Then, I'll know. 80. I'll know. 80. I'll know." Commander Hyunwoo approached Jiwon after the ceremony. "Your people saved us," he said. "But they also changed us. We can never go back to what we were." "No one can," Jiwon replied. "War changes everyone. The question is whether you become better or worse. And which did we become? That's for history to judge," Jiwon said. "We did what we had to do. We survived. Maybe that's enough." In the months that followed, the galaxy began to heal. The Krell swarm, without its queen mind, broke into small groups. Some were hunted down, others were contained on isolated worlds. The superweapon was destroyed before it could be used. The coalition changed too. They adopted some human tactics but kept their own values. They became harder, more practical, but not cruel. It was a balance, found through blood and sacrifice. A new doctrine emerged. One that recognized that survival sometimes required hard choices, but that those choices should never be made lightly. The burden of command was accepting that you might have to do terrible things and living with the consequences. Years later, Taejin visited a memorial on Karis IV. It was a simple stone wall with names carved into it. 50,000 names. He found Colonel Minho's name and placed his hand on it. "We survived, sir," he said quietly. "Just like you wanted. The galaxy is at peace. The Krell are gone. And we remember what it cost. We Wells have gone. And we remember what it cost." He looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, human and coalition ships patrolled together. Two peoples who had learned from each other, who had become something new. The price of survival had been high. But they had paid it. And they would remember. Always.